It had been years since anyone had lived in the old Hollow Creek house. Nestled between gnarled trees and the slow, winding river, the home seemed more a relic than a residence, a monument to forgotten lives. When the Harris family moved there, the house welcomed them with its musty silence, peeling wallpaper, and a faint scent of damp earth. Lila, the 17-year-old daughter, immediately felt that strange thrill, half excitement, half unease, that comes from stepping into a place forgotten by time. The first few days passed uneventfully. Mr. Harris, a local history professor, found joy in cataloging the house's antique furniture and old books, while Mrs. Harris, a school librarian, tried to make the creaking halls feel like home. Lila explored every corner, from the dusty attic to the shadowed basement. It was during one of these explorations that she first noticed the creek. At sunset, the water glimmered like molten silver. A faint, melancholic sound drifted from the ripples, almost like children laughing softly, but distorted, echoing in a way that felt unnatural. Lila mentioned it to her parents, but they attributed it to the wind or local wildlife. A week passed before anything truly alarming occurred. It started subtly, small noises at night, whispers that seemed to come from the walls. The family would wake to find doors slightly ajar or objects moved. Lila, who had been brave and inquisitive, grew uneasy, describing a feeling of being watched. One night, as she tried to sleep, she saw it, a fleeting shadow at the corner of her room, small and boyish, vanishing when she blinked. The Harris family dismissed it at first. "Old houses make old noises," Mr. Harris would say. But when Lila began speaking of the children who lived in the creek, they knew it was more than imagination. She drew sketches in her notebook. Pale faces with hollow eyes, small hands reaching out of the water. It was during the third week that the real terror began. Lila woke to find wet footprints across her bedroom floor. They led from the window to her bed. Terrified, she screamed for her mother, who discovered the trail stopping at Lila's bed, as if someone or something had watched from the shadows and then vanished. That night, the air grew impossibly cold, the kind of cold that seeps under the skin and settles in the bones. Mr. Harris began to research the area's history more rigorously. Hollow Creek had been the site of a small logging community in the 1952. A tragic accident had claimed the lives of 6 children who had drowned while playing near the river, a story that had since faded into obscurity. Locals whispered of the river, taking what it wanted, never elaborating further. Lila's experiences, however, suggested that the children had never truly left. One evening, the family gathered in the living room when the sound came again, a soft, eerie singing that seemed to rise from the river itself. Lila, drawn by something beyond comprehension, wandered to the window, staring into the dark waters. Her parents watched in horror as her eyes glazed over. She whispered a name, "James." The creek seemed to respond with ripples that moved against the current as though acknowledging her. Mrs. Harris tried to pull her away, but Lila resisted, her voice growing distant and echoing unnaturally. That night, sleep became impossible. The family lay awake, listening to footsteps pacing through empty rooms, whispers floating just beyond comprehension, and the sound of children singing in a language older than the town itself. By the 4th week, the hauntings intensified. Objects levitated briefly before crashing to the floor. Mirrors reflected more than their own room. They showed fleeting images of the drowned children staring back, eyes black and unblinking. Lila spoke to them, laughing nervously at first, but her parents could see the fear behind her smile. She claimed they told her to join us in the water, though she insisted she never intended to go. Mr. Harris set up cameras around the house, hoping to catch rational explanations. But the footage showed more than shadows. It captured figures standing silently by the creek, fading when approached. One clip even showed Lila standing at the riverbank at midnight, alone, while her parents were fast asleep upstairs. And then came the night Lila disappeared. That night the house was unusually still. The river outside, usually alive with a whispering current, seemed unnaturally silent. Mr. and Mrs. Harris checked on Lila before going to bed, finding her tucked under her blankets, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. "Everything is fine," she said softly, but her voice carried a hollow edge that set her parents on edge. Around midnight, a faint glow emanated from the creek. Mrs. Harris awoke to see Lila's bedroom window illuminated by an otherworldly light. Rushing to the window, she saw her daughter standing outside, drenched, eyes locked on the water. "Lila," she screamed, pulling on her robe and rushing to the door. Mr. Harris followed, heart hammering, but as they reached the front steps, Lila had vanished. Panicked, they ran toward the creek. The air grew icy cold, their breath forming clouds that hung unnaturally still. On the riverbank, the ground was soft, almost liquid underfoot, and 6 faint footprints led into the water, stopping abruptly as if the earth itself had swallowed them. A low murmur drifted across the river, children's voices, singing softly, yet distorted. Mrs. Harris fell to her knees, calling Lila's name. Mr. Harris, desperate, grabbed a flashlight and scanned the river, but all he could see was the black water reflecting the pale moonlight. Then he glimpsed movement, a small figure standing just beyond the shallow edge, shrouded in mist, features blurred. "Lila," he shouted, running forward, but the figure stepped back with unnatural grace, almost gliding. Suddenly, the water erupted in ripples, and 6 ghostly children emerged, surrounding Lila. Their eyes were dark voids, their smiles hauntingly serene. Lila looked at them, calm yet distant. "They won't hurt me," she said, her voice hollow. "They just want me to stay." Mr. Harris lunged forward, grabbing her arm, but icy hands grabbed him, pulling him toward the river. He fought with all his strength, but the current seemed to resist logic, holding him in place. Mrs. Harris screamed, trying to pull both of them back, but the spectral children pressed closer, circling them like predators. A blinding flash of light erupted from the creek, and when it faded, Lila was standing on the bank, shivering but unharmed. Mr. Harris was nowhere to be seen. The children vanished with the water, leaving behind only the echo of distant laughter and the gentle ripple of the creek. The town authorities found no trace of Mr. Harris the following day. Search teams scoured the river, but it was as if he had been claimed by Hollow Creek itself. Lila insisted it wasn't their fault, that they only wanted him because he tried to stop us. The family abandoned the house shortly after, leaving behind possessions, memories, and unanswered questions. Lila's experiences haunted her for years, her dreams filled with whispers of children and the endless murmur of the creek. She would later write in her diary, "I survived Hollow Creek, but the river never forgets. Sometimes, at night, I hear them calling my name again, and I know that the water is waiting." Even today, locals warn visitors never approach Hollow Creek after dark. Some claim that on quiet nights you can hear faint singing like children playing in the distance. But if you listen too closely, the voices call your name. And those who do are never seen again. Weeks turned into months after the night Lila's father vanished. The Harris family had moved to a small apartment in town, trying to rebuild their lives, yet Hollow Creek never left them. Lila woke every night to dreams of the river, water swirling, pale hands reaching, and whispers of names long forgotten. Mrs. Harris began noticing changes in her daughter. Lila spoke in ways that didn't quite sound like herself, using words and phrases she couldn't possibly know. Her sketches grew darker children with hollow eyes, water dripping from their fingers, spectral figures hovering just behind her family. Sometimes, Lila would freeze mid-sentence, staring at empty corners of the room, listening. One evening, unable to bear the quiet, Mrs. Harris decided to visit Hollow Creek alone, to confront the memories that haunted them. As she approached the house from afar, the air grew thick and heavy, each step toward the river more difficult than the last. She saw the remnants of the house, decaying under ivy and mist. The creek glimmered in the fading sunset, deceptively calm, but the water seemed almost to pulse, alive. Suddenly, a soft singing floated across the surface, familiar and chilling. Mrs. Harris recognized it instantly. It was Lila's voice, clear and innocent, yet somehow not entirely her own. "Mom, come closer," it called. Fear rooted her to the spot, but the maternal instinct drove her forward. At the water's edge, 6 figures appeared, emerging from the river like living shadows. Pale, silent, and ethereal, their black eyes bore into her soul. And there, standing among them, was Lila, her small frame illuminated by an otherworldly glow. The child's eyes were dark, distant, reflecting something beyond comprehension. "Mom," Lila said softly, reaching out, "they've been lonely. They just want me to stay, and you too if you try to take me away." The spectral children moved closer, circling Mrs. Harris. The water rippled unnaturally, rising like a slow tide toward her feet. Panic surged. She grabbed Lila, but the girl's body felt strangely heavy, like water itself resisting her grip. A cold wind swept across the creek. Whispers grew into anguished cries. Mrs. Harris felt hands numerous, icy grasping at her ankles. The water rose rapidly, lapping at her knees. Lila stood silently, her eyes reflecting the glow of the drowned. And then, in a flash of impossible clarity, Mrs. Harris realized the horrifying truth. Hollow Creek had claimed her husband, and it had claimed a part of Lila too. Desperate, she let go, falling backward. The figures dissipated instantly, leaving only the calm river. Lila collapsed beside her, trembling, speaking of voices that begged her to return, to join them in the water. Mrs. Harris cradled her daughter, tears streaming, realizing that the creek's pull would never end. It had taken her husband, it had touched her daughter, and it would always wait. The family left town soon after. Lila grew up carrying the weight of Hollow Creek's gaze. Though they moved thousands of miles away, she never stopped hearing whispers at night, calling her name softly, mournfully. In quiet moments, the river's song returned to her mind, a lullaby for the lost, a warning for the living.